What's up, Laker fans? Welcome to the Laker Film Room Podcast. I'm Pete, joined by Darius. And Lakers got a couple of road wins this weekend to move to 9-4. First was on Friday night. Really good game against the San Antonio Spurs. AD versus Wemby, and boy, did AD show up. Had a season high in that game. But the Lakers were down 11-0 to start that game, right? It was Dalton Knecht's first start, and that starting group did not play well at all. But by the end of the first quarter, despite that 11-0 start, the Lakers had the lead because, that was the best bench game I thought the Lakers had all year. Max got the opportunity to step in with Rui being out for both games and was superb in both games this weekend. I thought Christian gave the Lakers some really key minutes, especially in that second half. And then LeBron turned it on toward the end of that game for his fourth straight triple-double. You had a great tweet about he's still doing first time in his career type of things, and they're not cumulative, right? It's the first time in a season that, he's ever had four straight triple-doubles. And then on Saturday, the Skeleton Crew Pelicans, B.I. and a bunch of guys. Brandon Boston, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, those type of guys. But I knew a second game of a back-to-back for both teams that night. And Lakers came out very lethargic, cut it to 10 by the half. But for the second time in 3 games, Dalton Knecht went nuts in the third quarter and really, I thought, gave a great spark to the team. And so we'll talk Dalton, we'll talk a little Max, we'll talk the bench, LeBron. Oh, by the way, AD, averaging about 35 over those 2 games. Classic big man battle. I have a video about that and about Dalton's last 3 games and sort of him starting to pick up and get more comfortable. But Lakers are almost at 700 now at 9-4 early on in the season, banking some wins that they are really going to need down the line.
So they definitely are. After we recorded last week, I had mentioned on the other new social media app, Blue Sky, which I've been frequenting a little bit more often.
I just joined there if you want to follow me there, because I'm super anti-Elon Musk. I never talk about this, but yeah, that's the main reason I'm not on Twitter. So yeah, join me over on Blue Sky.
So the LFR account had sent out a note about the pod, and then I had commented that, I wish we had talked about LeBron a bit more in the pod that we did last week.
Me too.
He's been racking up triple doubles, and we talked about Knecht because he was great, and then we talked about Koloko some, and we don't get to everything, but we should have gotten to LeBron. So I want to try to rectify that a little bit here. LeBron continues to astound. His ability, and this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment at first, but I'm going to try to land the plane here. His ability to look bad, still accumulate numbers, and then at some point just totally take over a game. When JJ Redick said LeBron has mastered the game, I don't know if he was talking about this part of things particularly. I think he was talking about just knowing all of the reads and being able to understand exactly what they want to do as a team from the Lakers' perspective, what the other team is trying to do to them to take things away, the forecasting of what's going to work and all of this stuff.
And then the skills to capitalize on all that.
100%. And so it's this great sort of synergy that he has, but no one knows LeBron James better than LeBron James. And there's going to be times where he's like, look, I'm not going to do this extra effort thing because there's 220 combined possessions in this game when each team gets around 100 to 110 or so, right? And so I'm not going to burn it all. I can't play elite high energy basketball for all 70 of those that he's on the court for, right? But during any given stretch of the game, and particularly, I think, Pete, in these games where the Lakers are behind or it's tied and they just need a stretch to seize control, LeBron has been there almost every single time the team has needed him. He did not play particularly great over the course of both of those games, even though he got a triple-double against the Spurs. And even against the Pelicans, he did look a little bit like, second half of back-to-back, is he going to have it? But there he is at the end of these games, Pete, bearing important threes, really stepping up and showing that he's going to have his legs. The second 3 that he hit against the Pelicans down the stretch, and then he hit the silencer celebration, he really stepped into that and took a real jump shot. And it was very noticeable, the fact that he's like, I'm going to conjure my legs in this one. And even that sort of understanding of I need a little bit extra on this specific shot here. Like there's the greats know exactly what's needed in any given moment. And so I just want to give LeBron a little bit of props here. Like all the year 22 stuff, like we get it, but there's not a dozen players in the league today, Pete, who in the moment that their team needs them, understands exactly what to do from an energy standpoint, from a play calling standpoint, from an execution standpoint. There's not a dozen of them. And the fact that one of them is still LeBron James at this stage of his career is phenomenal to me. And I just wanted to comment on that first and foremost.
No, I'm so glad that you are starting with him because his move to the point guard spot and being more of a ball handler as D'Lo has gone to the bench, I think has really locked a lot of the elements of the team into place. Over the last 6 games, the Lakers are generating 32 spot ups per game, which is up from the 21 they were generating in the first 7. That's a big difference. And the reason for that are the events that lead up to the spot up, right? Spot ups are dependent upon something happening before it that draw a second defender, create an open shot, or at least if you want an open spot up, right? And so LeBron's ability to do that while managing his body within the game and his energy within the game, the point guard position is such a great spot for that. And this has been such a gratifying season, D, to see several of the things. I've been just like, God, can we please just do this? Like we're doing a ton of horn stuff. We're doing a ton of stack pick and roll. And out of the horns with LeBron, it just gives him the ball in triple threat position. Other players are moving around. Like the team's 3-man actions have started to get better. And this is part of the reason why, despite having a top 5 offense, I'm like, yo, let's shoot for the number 1 spot. This team is absolutely capable of being the best offense in the league or flirting with it. Lord knows the Cavaliers are awesome and the Celtics are always great at this as well. But Lakers are right in that mix with them and New York. And there are so many opportunities still available, but you're seeing more and more of them with that spot up attempt stat that I just gave as a result of LeBron knowing how to generate those. And so we talk always about the 82-game player versus a 16-game player. I see LeBron more and more as a 16-minute player. Like he's too good and too important to this team to be a guy that, like Robert Horry, I would always laugh, like he's going to show up in the playoffs. During the regular season, he was a maddening player. But when time came, Big Shot Bob was going to be there. LeBron is too good and makes too much money, all of that to be that type of player. But I do think that he can somewhat coast and manage the game while still getting production for the rest of his team. And then I just wanted to bring up in the context of this, his defensive rebounding has been crucial to this Lakers team. And the absence of it in that Saturday game was part of the reason why the Pelicans were killing us early on. But I just wanted to bring that up. He is sort of summoning that energy for a different aspect of basketball as well, where the Lakers really need it.
It's so funny you brought up defensive rebounding because I was actually looking this up after the Spurs game because LeBron's had some pretty important rebounds, like against the Grizzlies as well, after AD had gone to the bench, but against the Raptors as well. And so the other day I just looked up defensive rebounding stats, and LeBron and AD are the only 2 teammates that are both in the top 10 of defensive rebounding this season.
Oh, wow.
Now, maybe that's changed since the last game, because I think I looked it up after the Friday night game, but I was just like, oh man, these dudes, because I was sort of like, AD's rebounding numbers are a little bit down compared to previous seasons. Like in certain games, like, oh, AD with a 9 rebound game. But then you look and, oh, it's because LeBron had 13 rebounds and almost all of them are defensive rebounds because LeBron's not a guy who goes to the offensive glass a ton. He's mostly at the top of the floor or at the elbow. And then when he drives, it's not like he's going to rebound his own misses anymore. Like not often, maybe on a power back down. But I'm glad you brought up the rebounding. The other thing I was going to point out about the spot up attempts that you brought up, Pete, it's a different animal when LeBron is point guard versus when D'Lo or anyone else is playing point guard, because LeBron instantly creates a certain amount of, oh shit, this dude has the ball. And that shifts the defense to different spots on the floor and helps situations. And LeBron is such a good passer that even if he is not sending the pass that creates the spot up, it's that initial advantage that leads to a spot up attempt in the first place, right? And so if the defense shades at LeBron a little bit, and then he just throws the simple pass, like literally just one pass away, and then that defender who was showing maybe a little bit of nail help now has to slide over, that creates a domino effect that when that guy ball fakes or just hits a quick shovel pass to the corner, and then the corner man has now just a bit of a second more to either shoot that spotted up shot.
Makes all the difference.
Or just drive a closeout because the guy is then rushing at him just a little bit more. It's like, these are all a part of the sequence that you've been screaming out for. Just like, be a little bit more patient. But patience often reveals itself when the other team has to hurry. This is nothing against Austin or D'Lo. They just don't inspire the same amount of like panic in a defense, or the same amount of like, I have every pass and every angle available to me, because they're not 6'9" with supercomputer M4 chip brain for passing and all of the experience of seeing every single defense imaginable. So it's just a culmination of things with like LeBron, and it's all coming to a head. And it's just great to see how he has sort of set things up for other players. Let's go to break here, Pete, because one of the players that he is helping to set up is the rookie who's been on fire of late. So back on the other social media platform, Twitter, I had sent out a comment after Knecht had gone 1 for 8, I think against the Raptors. He was like 1 for 8 from 3, or 1 for 7 from 3 and 1 for 8 overall. But he was rattling a bunch of shots in and out. And I was just like, he's close, man. Like the shots he's getting, these are good shots, and he's just missing them. And I had said, if he gets these same looks over the next few games, I have a feeling he's going to go on a tear. I'm not psychic or anything, but since that point, Pete, he's shooting the hell out of the ball. I think he's made 13 of his 21 threes since then, and is like just really found himself. And to your point that you made earlier, he is turning games back in the Lakers' favor and really like giving them a spark in ways that D'Lo sort of did last season for the Lakers as like a shot maker and someone who is a 5-alarm fire just waiting to happen.
Yeah,
and
you just went on a 9-0 run all by yourself in 90 seconds.
Totally. And so what are you seeing from Knecht? And do you tie it back to LeBron at all? Or is this just like more of he's finding himself within the rhythm of the game?
All of it's related. So first and foremost, it's just that finding a rhythm. That's why I would really caution against holding any opinions too strongly early on. Now, some things we've seen over the course of years, but for guys like Dalton, but even across the roster, there's a certain amount of adjusting to a new role, adjusting to a new offense, that catching a rhythm is such a big thing that it's one of the bigger things I learned from being around like NBA basketball people is like whenever they would talk about, we have our chats about different players or whatever, and that idea of a rhythm would always come up in ways that people who don't work in basketball don't bring it up nearly as much. And so he's 12 games into his career, or 13 now into his career, and that's such a vital thing with shooters. And then who's going to be one of the primary beneficiaries of our spot up attempts going from 21 per game to 32 per game? Of course, it's going to be Dalton Knecht. And now he's going to take some of those shots that other guys would be like, hey, this is a bad shot for me, I'm going to give it up. But it's all part and parcel, right? LeBron being able to kick it out to him. But the thing that I'm seeing that Dalton is a part of, and what I'm so excited about with him, is that the way the Lakers offense works, for the most part in the half court, is there's going to be 3 guys in the middle of the floor operating in sync with each other, ideally, right? And so out of those horn sets, there's a dozen different variations, if not more, where they can go this way or that way. And then out of the stack sets, same type of thing, right? Where there was a play yesterday, we know a Spain pick and roll where you set the back screen, and if you're that back screener, you pop up to the top of the key. There was a play where Gabe will flare that out into a ghost screen and go out to the wing, for example. So you've got a couple of base looks and then a bunch of different variations out of them. And then the other 2 players on the court are generally going to be standing in the corner waiting for a drive and kick, catch and shoot type of situation. The thing I like about Dalton D is he can do both of those things. He can be one of the 3 players in that action, and the Lakers will put him at the top of the key. And you were pointing this out the other day about how part of his breakthrough was being less stationed in the corner and more involved in the action. So he can be part of AD screens away for him, or there were some 3-man sequences at the end of the Spurs game where AD would like set a flare screen for Dalton. LeBron would have the ball in the post. Then he got a cut. AD got a layup off of a cut where a little too much gravity went toward Dalton on the perimeter and AD just slipped the screen. It's like they lost AD because they were worried about Dalton. That's really exciting to have a rookie that has that kind of gravity. And so that involvement in both of those ways. And then I'll get more later to the contribution in transition, the abilities as a cutter around the basket, like just a really, like we got a guy that can really, really score. And I'd love to talk more about his role and going forward, D, but what did you see over the course of these last couple games?
I think you starting that off with a discussion of rhythm is a great place to start because Knecht's a player who had a ton of usage at Tennessee in college his senior year. And that's one of the ways you can score 30-something points in a bunch of games at the college level. It's because the entire offense was built around him. It's like, give him the ball. Run him off screens, let him play in pick and roll every now and then, find him in transition, early offense stuff. Everything was sort of flowing to him. And when that's the case, it's very easy for you to never feel like a shot is out of reach and to always feel like, I'm going to get the ball here and I'm going to understand how the game is feeling and everything else. The move to the starting lineup, I think, accelerated this with Rui out. But just in general, him getting back to being able to be on the floor for 7, 8, 9 minutes at a time, and for him to be in some of the horns actions, coming up and setting ball screens, them running actions for him, LeBron being the guy who is then triggering offense so that when the ball does go to the sideline or to the wing and those guys attack a closeout, then it's Dalton that's on the other side or Dalton that's sliding up in replace actions in order to get a clean spotted up look. All of that, him touching the ball a little bit more, I think is contributing to his ability to find that flow within the game. And so I think he got up 10 threes in this last game. And for all the talk we had earlier in the season about, oh, that's a bit of a forced shot, that's a bit of a forced shot, when he was not touching the ball as much, it felt like he was trying to find the rhythm.
Right.
And now with the sort of expansion and with the better ball movement and with the more spotted opportunities, the rhythm is just finding him.
And there are fewer bad shots despite a higher volume of shots overall.
Yeah, and it's because he doesn't feel the need to have to take the shot every single time because he's getting more than 10 touches over the course of a full basketball game, right? Like now it's him who is creating driving kick opportunities for other players. Like he's attacking closeouts, 2 dribbles in, a guy has to step up to him because he's such a good mid-range shooter, and then he's kicking it to the corner for an open shot.
There was a huge play at the end of the San Antonio game where Dalton was in the strong side corner and LeBron had the ball in the left slot, right? So he's on the same side of the court. Him and Dalton are on the same side of the court. Then you've got the other 3 on the weak side of the court. And LeBron just early in the possession noticed that Dalton's guy was cheating, was a little too high, right? And Dalton was in the corner. And so he passed it to Dalton and Dalton caught it and immediately racked baseline. And when you go drive along the baseline, you've got 3 passing reads. This is true of most driving situations, but the easiest one is the one that's straight ahead of you. So it's to the guy in the other corner. The most productive one, if you can get it, is the dump off to the big at the top of the restricted area. And that's where AD had cut once Dalton racked right there. But the most open one usually is also the hardest pass, which is why it's the most open one, which is the wing on the weak side. And so Dalton drives to his left along the baseline, puts a foot in the ground and jumps. They take away the dump off to AD. There's too many bodies and arms there to get that through. BI was helping off of Max, but like Max would have been kind of open if he made that pass. But Austin was by himself on the right wing. And Dalton puts a foot in the ground and whips the pass with velocity out to Austin, and it's right on the money. It's a super athletic pass, right? It's hard to get that pass because you got to pass it across your body because your momentum is going toward the right corner, but you have to throw it toward the right wing. Austin catches it, swings it back over to LeBron, who's now open on the weak side. Messi has way too long of a closeout and pulls a huge three right before that one you were talking about, where he got his legs into that. LeBron got a great catch and shoot three off of a rack from Dalton, and then a really nice pass. So it's like the shooting it's so fun, and we've had so few true shooters as Laker fans that it's like, oh my God, we got one of these guys. It's super fun, but he's way more than just that. So let's take another break and talk a little more about that.
This is what I'm saying, though, about him being a usage player in college, Pete, is like you cannot be a high-level college player at that level and not have more to your game. You can't just be a scorer, basically. Like defenses, even at the college level, are too complicated for that. They're just going to be like, no. We're going to send multiple guys at you and you're not going to get caught at all. I remember this was true of JJ Redick when he was in college, and when he first got to the league, it was true of like Kyle Korver. I remember Kyle Korver would come off these double wide pin downs. He'd catch the ball and he was making these beautiful like pocket passes to the big man, slipping out of screens. He was like driving and kicking or coming off of a curl, ball faking, doing a lot of stuff that's just like, oh, you have that in your bag? And it's just like, of course I have that in my bag. I was a high usage player. Like I'm more than just a shooter. And so I look at Knecht and he's just like, how many times do you think he's been closed out hard against in his career? He knows what the hell he's doing. He understands how to beat top foot, get to an angle, find himself in the middle of the floor, and then understand how to make a good read. Like the lob pass that he made to Koloko, I think that was
so nice. Transition, yeah.
That was in transition. But even that is a byproduct of, oh, I'm in a crowd now. I understand. I see this, and I'm going to throw the pass up. And so I'm not saying, oh, give him the ball and let him cook. No. I'm saying, though, within the flow of the game, he's going to find opportunities to make an impact. And he understands his role within this style of offense and what the reads are. And so he understands what the read is from the top of the key. He understands what the read is from the baseline. He understands how and where to come off screens, if he's going to flare, if he's going to come off tight and curl, if he's going to take a step back and push you down and then pop out so that he can just take a step back three. He has all of that stuff in his bag, Pete. And so Knecht, to me, has leapfrogged his way, not into the starting lineup. I think when Rui comes back, it's Rui's place. I think when everyone is healthy, there's probably the potential for there to be a reevaluation of what the best starting five is, but everyone's not healthy, and it seems like it's going to be a while before everyone is. So for now, though, I want Dalton to be that guy who is a four-shift player, basically, and he should get opportunities to close the game if he's going to rebound and do some of the other things that you need him to do on the court as an athletic wing.
I think it behooves the Lakers to have him as a 28-ish minute player going forward for both short-term and long-term reasons. I'd love to talk about his defense over the course of these last few games, which hasn't been as good, because that to me represents this is something I was even arguing this offseason, was that I thought we had a guy in Dalton that could really score and provided it at a skill set where, remember, I'd always say that Klay Thompson was my ideal third star next to LeBron and AD because of how he complements what they do. Dalton is not Klay, right? But he is that archetype that just helps so much. He fits so well. And so the defensive end of the floor, him being competent enough, or the Lakers being able to work around him enough, is going to take enough reps, enough thought, a certain amount of failure, a certain amount of trial and error to get there. And you may end up at a place where it's like, he's a rookie, he's not going to be able to get to where you need him to be. And so you have to have those reps in higher leverage situations too, to be able to learn those things. And so to me, Dalton is very important to the final outcome of this Lakers season, which is not extremely fair to ask of a 17th pick in the draft that's a rookie. But for this specific Lakers team, he's an important piece that I think getting him up to speed as much as possible should be one of the top line items for the team.
I think the biggest thing for me is, can you get him to a place where he's just making fewer mistakes, where there's fewer miscommunications? He's going to get beat off the dribble sometimes, Pete. That's different than we botched a switch.
Right. Yeah. What are the mistakes that you're referring to that are sort of under his control?
So there are times where if the Lakers are in their red package, are they switching 1 through 4? Are they switching 1 through 5? Are we switching on touch? Or are we switching just even on like regular exchanges? I saw him have a miscommunication. It must have been 2, because I think it was when him and Rui were on the court together, and there was a bit of a pause in the exchange between him and Rui. And it's funny because you've compared him to Rui like in the past. And so I think they're both susceptible in the same ways to the same sort of defensive mistakes as well. Like, wait, are we doing this here? Oh, we are. But in that beat where you have to second guess, you're late. And that may not be the thing that kills you, where the guy comes off the screen and now he's open and he shoots a shot, but it will make it so that you no longer have inside position on the defensive rebound. Like, there are things like that where he will end up out of position based off of decision-making stuff, where it's just like, what are we in right now? Or what are we doing? And that sort of stuff, if you can get him away from that like a little bit more, then I think that you've got something, at least in terms of him being in the right place more often.
Redick made comments along these lines recently, D, of Dalton being more engaged in the overall team approach, of whether engaged wasn't the word that he used, because I actually find Dalton to be fairly engaged. And that's one of the things I think you have to work with him defensively. But being just more cognizant of what the overall team is trying to do defensively, that's reps and film work in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But the point about switching is super key to me, in that I don't think he can switch that much, because, for example, first 2 plays of the San Antonio game, and what was a common theme in that game, and he was good on offense in that one, but he didn't close, in part because he was targeted on defense. With the Lakers starting lineup switching more, which my theory is that is largely for the benefit of Anthony Davis, and that if you want Anthony Davis to give you 30 a game, he can do that. Just pick up the other end of the damn couch and not ask him to do everything on defense for you as well. Although he was everything to, it was like, oh, BI is killing us down the stretch. Just put AD on him. We haven't even talked about AD, and we probably won't get to much of him in this one, but we'll talk more tomorrow about these last 2 games. But yeah, we're switching so much more with the starting group that it's like, oh, Stephon Castle's like, Dalton, come here. That's the weakness of a switching defense, is you get to pick who it is. And so, in a sentence, what I think we should be trying to do with Dalton is keeping him below the free throw line as much as possible defensively. And so if there are groups where the team doesn't switch, I think that's more conducive to the Dalton type of groups, because he's going to there are things he can get better at individually. There is more experience that he can get, and film work and reps and all that good stuff. He can be better than he is in this respect, but it is going to be a weakness of his to some degree or another, in ways that minimizing the frequency that happens, I think, is going to be important. But on the positive side, D, he got a couple of huge defensive rebounds this weekend. I think he had 3 different possessions, 2 in one game and 1 in the other, down the stretch in crunch time. And those are super tough rebounds to get, because everybody's frantic. Everybody's playing at their hardest, and they're scrums, right? You have to have a certain level of athleticism and the ability to double jump. That's another thing that just blows me away about him. He had a double jump rebound in crunch time to help us get the win in against Memphis, I think it was a couple of games ago. And then he had a cut against San Antonio in that same 3-man action with LeBron and AD, where LeBron passed it to him and it was kind of behind him. I thought it was going to be a turnover, and he caught it, but he missed the layup on one side because he was kind of in an awkward position, but he recovered it on the other side and put it right back up in ways where it's like, very few shooters can give you that second jump. So anyway, I digress. defensively, that's what I see, D, is that he's a guy that doesn't switch as well, but has some value on sandwich rebounding. Like he will lose his guy off the ball a little bit, but I think there's stuff there to work with while acknowledging that he's going to be weak on that end.
He has physical tools, and you have to leverage the tools that he does have. He's a good leaper. He's strong. He has a nose for the ball. And so try to cater to those things as much as you can. He's not going to hold up in isolation, lateral quickness against guys who can attack him. And so switching him out onto all of these guards, it's very similar to like the things you have to compensate for with like D'Lo or Rui in this regard. It's not always going to be exactly the same, but you know what I mean. You got to have a plan behind him. And then Dalton's got to be locked into what the plan is. Before we close out here, Pete, we'd be remiss. I don't want to necessarily get it into AD now. Like AD is too great. Like I don't want to give him 2 minutes of love, but the guy I do want to give 2 minutes of love to is Max Christie. Max Christie had fallen out of the rotation, and then Rui's out against the Spurs. Cam still played, but Rui was out. And so before the game, JJ said, Max is going to get some run. It's like, next man up. And it was sort of like, be ready. And they talked about this on the broadcast a bunch. Like, the only thing that you can do is like, when your phone rings, is be there to answer it and then be ready. And Max was great against the Spurs, like fantastic, both because he was like really good offensively. I thought he did a lot of good stuff even beyond the shot making. But when the shot goes in, it's just like, oh, you could be an excellent player for sure. Just have your shot fall. But defensively, I thought he was really good. Talk about switching. He switched a ton onto Wembanyama, and he had a big steal, but was just fronting and battling, getting low, using his physicality. Reminded me very much of those old, like, We Believe Warriors when they'd play like Dirk. And it's just like, hey, we're putting Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson on Dirk, and we're fronting him. We're going to bang him.
We're going to take out his legs.
Yeah, totally. Doing a lot of that stuff. And that's how you have to play against a guy who's super tall. He did not shoot as well against the Pelicans, but I thought defensively he battled his tail off against Brandon Ingram. He got inserted into the starting lineup because then Cam was out that night. And it's just like, okay, well, the Lakers are down almost all their perimeter dudes, and they really needed Max to step up. And I thought he answered the bell again. Like, he didn't shoot that great, but it's just like he was still making some plays. Talk about a baseline rack. He had a great baseline rack. And so, so talk to me about what you saw from Max over the weekend.
Yeah, that San Antonio game is down the stretch of that game. Similar play to Dalton. Max is racking baseline, but in Max's case, he's been over and over and over again getting his shot blocked at the rim. We've talked a lot about that, making that decision. I'm going to go all the way to the basket and try to dunk this like all the way out at the 3-point line, and that being very predictable for the defense to take away. Drives to the rack baseline, and I'm like, oh, Lord, here we go. And makes a nice kick out to the weak side corner. It's the simplest read. It's the one right in front of you, but it was a nice pass with velocity. I think it whipped over to Austin for a catch and shoot wing three that he knocked down. And I was like, let's go, Max. And then you were talking about fronting Wemby and taking out his legs. The last possession of the game, he did a really good job. They switched on that, and they'd been trying to attack that in both instances with Wemby and with BI. Defensively, if Max isn't going up against a guy who can push through him and has like a low center of gravity, that's the thing, is Max had the center of gravity advantage on both of those guys, which it's funny. You don't think of it this way that often, but in some ways, some shorter, powerful guys can give him problems because they can go through him. But neither Wemby nor BI are that style of offensive player, and Max competed really well within that. We've got to wrap up here. There's so much we didn't get to. I'm so glad we have 2 days to kind of chew on this. We'll get to more of the untouched stuff, including AD and some other things in the next pod. But until then, you've been listening to Laker Film Room Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.
James has got it in low to McHale. McHale wants to turn. He's double teamed. Just pass out in front. Broken up by Worthy. Tips to Magic. Worthy dies on his belly. Magic scores.
There's Magic got it. Magic fires. It's good. They will. Lakers win the game. The Lakers win the game. Rebound of Lonnie. 3 seconds left. Van Exel to win it. It's on the way. Good.
Kobe Bryant, 48 points, 16 rebounds.
Shot with his 8th block shot that ties an NBA Finals record.
A lot of Laker fans sticking around for this.
You're seeing something that's very rare indeed a Laker to get MVP chance
Right, in Boston. Of all places.
Are you kidding me?
Kobe, hard to believe.
Are you kidding me? Unreal. Are you kidding me?
Lakers looking to push. Bryant spinning in the lane. Back for Gasol. Pretty pass. And it's back to a three-point game.
Kobe Bryant picked up by Bell.
There's the move. 2, 1.
Miss it.
Unbelievable.
For the victory.
It's over.
Shot clock now to 5. Bryant. Yes. And that was a little tough to Alvin Gentry. Add insult to injury, Kobe. I mean, what a shot. I mean, you can't defend that. Are you kidding me?
2.1 seconds remaining. Denver a foul to give. Jokic trying to disrupt Rondo. He puts it in. Here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good! Anthony Davis has won it for the Lakers! James again. Oh, he hits another one. LeBron James putting together a closing quarter against the Nuggets.
This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers conquer the bubble, and banner number 7